Karen glared at the colorful mural, hands trembling with outrage. "This vandalism ends today," she growled, snatching a can of paint from her trunk. But as she raised the roller, a dark uniformed figure stepped from the shadows. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the wall." The officer's eyes narrowed. "That's city-approved street art." Karen's face drained of color. She was in big trouble now. Emma hummed softly as she added the final brushstrokes to the vibrant mural. After weeks of planning and countless hours hunched over her sketchpad, she'd finally brought her vision to life, transforming the bare concrete wall into an explosion of color and movement. Stepping back, Emma admired her work, a proud smile tugging at her lips. The neighborhood kids had loved watching the piece come together, some even asking if they could help. It had been a true community effort, the kind that made Emma feel more connected to the area she called home. Just as she was packing up her paints, a shrill voice pierced the air. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" Emma spun around to see a well-dressed woman storming towards her, face twisted in outrage. "This is unacceptable. You're defacing public property with your graffiti." The woman spat, her gaze sweeping over the mural with undisguised disgust. "Excuse me?" Emma blinked in confusion. "This is the city-approved mural project. I have all the necessary permits." The woman scoffed. "Permits? Don't be ridiculous. This is nothing but vandalism, plain and simple." She whirled around, marching back to her car. "I'm putting a stop to this right now." Emma watched in stunned silence as the woman yanked open her trunk and retrieved a can of paint and roller. Her heart sank as the woman began striding back towards the wall, a crazed glint in her eyes. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the wall," a deep voice suddenly boomed. Emma whirled around to see a police officer emerging from a nearby alley, his hand resting on the holster at his hip. The woman froze, the paint can slipping from her grip and clattering to the ground. "Officer, I'm only trying to stop this vandalism," she protested, her voice quivering. The officer's eyes narrowed. "Ma'am, that mural is city-approved street art. Attempting to deface it is a crime." Emma watched in stunned silence as the officer calmly but firmly escorted the now trembling woman to his patrol car, the sound of her indignant shrieks echoing down the street. As the car pulled away, Emma let out a shaky breath, her hands trembling slightly. She had known there would be some backlash, but she never could have predicted a confrontation this intense. Looking back at the vibrant mural, she felt a renewed sense of pride and determination. This was her community, and she would fight to protect it. The sound of Karen's indignant shrieks faded as the police car rounded the corner, leaving Emma alone on the quiet street. She stared at the vibrant mural, her heart still pounding from the confrontation. Just as she was about to pack up her supplies, a small voice piped up from behind her. "Excuse me, miss? Are you the artist?" Emma turned to see a group of neighborhood kids, their eyes wide with awe as they gazed up at the mural. "Yes, that's me," Emma replied, mustering a smile. "What do you think?" "It's amazing," one of the boys exclaimed, his face lighting up. "I love the colors and the way the shapes move. It's like the whole wall is dancing." The other children nodded enthusiastically, their earlier trepidation replaced by genuine wonder and delight. "We saw that lady trying to ruin it," a girl said, her brow furrowed. "Why would she do that?" Emma sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Some people just don't understand or appreciate art, I suppose. But the city approved this project, and the police officer made sure she couldn't do any damage." The children nodded solemnly, understanding dawning on their faces. "Well, we think it's the best thing that's ever been on this wall," a boy declared, his chest puffed out with pride. "And we're going to make sure nobody ever tries to ruin it again." The other kids cheered in agreement, and Emma felt a swell of affection for the tight-knit community she'd become a part of. "That's very kind of you all," she said, her eyes crinkling with genuine warmth. "I'm glad you love the mural as much as I do." As the children scattered, their laughter and chatter filling the air, Emma turned back to her work, a renewed sense of purpose coursing through her. This mural wasn't just a piece of art. It was a symbol of the neighborhood's resilience and pride, and she would do whatever it took to protect it. As Emma packed up her supplies, she couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of unease. The confrontation with the outraged woman had rattled her more than she wanted to admit. What if this wasn't the last she'd seen of her? Shouldering her bag, Emma set off down the street, her eyes scanning the area for any potential threats. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Just as she was rounding the corner, a familiar voice made her blood run cold. Well, if it isn't the vandal herself. Emma whirled around to find the same well-dressed woman glaring at her, her eyes narrowed to slits. "Ma'am, I can assure you that mural is completely legal and city approved," Emma said, struggling to keep her voice even. The woman scoffed. "I don't care what that incompetent officer said. This is nothing but an eyesore, and I'm going to make sure it's removed, one way or another." Emma's heart began to race as the woman took a menacing step forward. "I suggest you leave this neighborhood and take your graffiti with you," the woman hissed, her lip curling in disgust, "before you find yourself in serious trouble." Emma opened her mouth to protest, but the woman had already turned on her heel and stalked away, leaving her standing on the sidewalk, trembling with fear and indignation. As she hurried home, Emma's mind raced with 1,000 different scenarios. What if the woman tried to vandalize the mural again? What if she somehow managed to get the city to remove it? The thought of all her hard work being erased made Emma's stomach churn. When she finally reached her apartment, Emma collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. She had poured her heart and soul into that mural, and she wasn't about to let some entitled, narrow-minded woman take that away from her. Lifting her head, Emma's gaze fell on the sketchbook sitting on her coffee table, her latest design sketches visible through the open pages. A steely determination began to take root in her chest. If that woman wanted a fight, then a fight she would get. The next morning, Emma woke up with a plan. She quickly showered, threw on some clothes, and hurried out the door, her sketchbook tucked securely under her arm. As she approached the mural, Emma's steps slowed to a halt. The colorful wall art still stood, untouched, but her heart sank as she spotted a familiar figure prowling nearby. Karen. The well-dressed woman was pacing back and forth, her eyes narrowed in concentration as she studied the mural. Emma took a deep breath and steeled her nerves before approaching her. "Good morning, ma'am," she called out, doing her best to keep her voice calm and even. "Is there something I can help you with?" Karen whirled around, her expression darkening as she laid eyes on Emma. "As a matter of fact, there is," she spat, her gaze sweeping over the mural with disdain. "I'm going to see to it that this abomination is removed, one way or another." Emma felt a surge of anger, but she forced herself to remain composed. "Ma'am, I can assure you that this mural has been approved by the city. It's part of a community project, and it's not going anywhere." Karen's eyes narrowed to slits. "We'll see about that," she growled, turning on her heel and striding away. Panic seized Emma's heart as she watched the woman disappear around the corner. She couldn't let Karen win. This mural meant too much to her, and to the entire neighborhood. Clutching her sketchbook tightly, Emma hurried to the local city hall, determined to speak with the officials who had approved the project in the first place. If Karen was going to fight dirty, then so be it. Emma was ready to do whatever it took to protect her work, and the community she had come to love. As she sat in the waiting room, Emma's mind raced with possibilities. She had come up with a plan, but she knew it was risky. Still, she couldn't back down now. This mural was more than just a work of art. It was a symbol of hope and resilience in a neighborhood that had seen its fair share of hardship. When her name was finally called, Emma took a deep breath and steeled her nerves. it was time to take the fight to Karen. Emma's heart raced as she stepped into the city official's office, her sketchbook clutched tightly in her hands. "Good morning, Ms. Wilkins." The official, a kindly-looking older man, greeted her with a warm smile. "What can I do for you today?" "Well, sir, I'm here about the mural I recently completed in the neighborhood," Emma began, her voice steadier than she expected. "I've run into a bit of a problem." She quickly explained the confrontation with Karen and the woman's threats to have the mural removed. The official's brow furrowed in concern. "I see. This is certainly a troubling development." He leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "You said the mural has all the necessary approvals." "Yes, sir," Emma nodded emphatically. "I went through the proper channels, followed all the guidelines, and even got input from the community. This is a city-sponsored project." The official considered her words for a moment, then a sly smile spread across his face. "Well, in that case, I think I have an idea that might just put an end to Mrs. Wilkins' little crusade." Emma leaned forward, her eyes wide with hope. "Please, sir, anything you can do would be greatly appreciated." The official chuckled and began rummaging through his desk, finally producing a thick stack of papers. "You see, Mrs. Wilkins has quite a history of, shall we say, interfering with community projects she disagrees with." He handed the papers to Emma. "These are all the complaints and lawsuits we've had to deal with over the years." Emma's eyes widened as she flipped through the documents, her brow furrowing in concern. "This is extensive." "Indeed," the official nodded. "And I believe we can use this to our advantage." He leaned back in his chair, a mischievous glint in his eye. "What do you say we give Mrs. Wilkins a little taste of her own medicine?" Emma couldn't help but grin, a surge of determination coursing through her. "I'm listening." As the official outlined his plan, Emma felt a growing sense of excitement. This was a high-stakes gamble, but if it worked, it would not only protect her mural, but also send a clear message to Karen. This community was not to be trifled with. Clutching the documents tightly, Emma thanked the official and hurried out of the office, a renewed sense of purpose fueling her every step. Karen paced back and forth in front of the vibrant mural, her fingers drumming against the can of paint in her hand. She had to find a way to get this eyesore removed, no matter what it took. Just as she was about to make another attempt at defacing the wall, a familiar voice called out behind her. "Mrs. Wilkins, what a pleasant surprise to see you here." Karen spun around to find the city official who had overseen the mural project approaching her, a sickly, sweet smile plastered on his face. "Mr. Daniels," she greeted him coolly, quickly hiding the paint can behind her back. "I was just admiring the local artwork." The official chuckled, shaking his head. "I'm afraid I can't allow you to admire it any further, Mrs. Wilkins." His expression hardened. "We've received numerous complaints about your continued attempts to interfere with city-sponsored projects." Karen's face flushed with indignation. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she spat. "I'm simply trying to maintain the integrity of this neighborhood." "Is that so?" The official raised a skeptical brow. "Then perhaps you can explain the half-dozen lawsuits and cease and desist orders we have on file, all pertaining to your meddling in community initiatives." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, her mind racing to come up with a plausible excuse. I was simply looking out for the best interests of the taxpayers," she stammered, her grip on the paint can tightening. The official tusked, his expression dripping with false sympathy. "I'm afraid your best interests have caused us quite a bit of trouble over the years, Mrs. Wilkins." He stepped closer, his voice lowering to a menacing tone. "Now, I'm going to have to ask you to hand over that paint can and leave the premises, or we can take this to the authorities. Your choice." Karen's face drained of color as she realized she had been outmaneuvered. Reluctantly, she thrust the paint can at the official, who accepted it with a triumphant grin. "I thought you'd see it our way," he said smugly. "Now, I suggest you go home and stay out of our community affairs from now on." "Understood." Fuming with rage, Karen turned on her heel and stormed away, her heels clicking furiously against the pavement. She had been humiliated and outmatched, and she had no idea how to get her revenge. As Karen stalked away in defeat, Emma watched from the shadows, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. The plan had worked perfectly. Thanks to the city officials' quick thinking and the trove of evidence against Karen, the woman had been completely outmaneuvered. Emma waited a few more minutes, just to be sure Karen had truly retreated, before stepping out into the open. The mural stood tall and proud, untouched by the would-be vandal's futile attempts. A sense of relief and accomplishment washed over Emma as she approached the vibrant work of art. She had poured her heart and soul into this project, and she would be damned if anyone was going to take that away from her, or from the community that had embraced it with such enthusiasm. As Emma was gathering her supplies, a small crowd of neighborhood kids came bounding down the street, their faces lit up with excitement. "Did you see? Did you see?" one of the boys shouted, practically bouncing with glee. "That mean lady tried to ruin the mural, but the police stopped her." Emma chuckled, nodding. "Yes, I saw. And I'm happy to report that the mural is safe and sound, thanks to the city's support." The children erupted into cheers, jumping up and down and high-fiving one another. Emma watched, her heart swelling with pride. This mural wasn't just her creation. It belonged to the entire community, a symbol of their resilience and unity. "We knew you'd protect it," a girl exclaimed, beaming up at Emma. "You're our hero." Emma felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment, but she couldn't suppress the warmth that spread through her. These kids, these neighbors, they had become more than just subjects for her art. They were her family, her support system, and she would do whatever it took to keep them safe. As the children scattered, their laughter echoing down the street, Emma turned back to the mural, running her fingers along the vibrant brushstrokes. This was more than just a work of art. It was a testament to the power of community, to the importance of fighting for what you believe in. And she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would always be ready to defend it. Karen fumed in silence as she drove home, her knuckles white-knuckled on the steering wheel. She couldn't believe she had been so thoroughly outmaneuvered by that smug city official and the infuriating artist who had created that hideous mural. As she pulled into her driveway, Karen slammed the car door shut, muttering curses under her breath. She stormed into her house, slamming the front door behind her. "That's it," she growled, pacing back and forth in her living room. "I'm not going to let them get away with this." Determined to find a way to take down the mural once and for all, Karen began scouring the internet, searching for any possible legal loopholes or technicalities she could exploit. She spent hours combing through zoning laws, permit regulations, and property ownership records, her frustration growing with each dead end. Just as she was about to give up, a devious smile spread across her face. "Aha, I've got it." Karen quickly made a few phone calls, her shrill voice cutting through the silence of her empty house. Yes, that's exactly what I need you to do. And make sure it's done quietly. I don't want any more interference from that meddlesome city official or that artist." Hanging up the phone, Karen let out a self-satisfied chuckle. "This time, I'll have the last laugh." Over the next few days, Karen's plan slowly came together, with the help of a few shady contractors and a hefty bribe or two. She watched with glee as the unsuspecting city crews began dismantling the mural, piece by piece. But just as the final section of the vibrant artwork was about to be removed, a familiar figure came rushing onto the scene, her eyes wild with fury. "What do you think you're doing?" Emma cried, her voice echoing down the deserted street. The city workers froze, glancing nervously at one another. Karen stepped forward, a triumphant smirk on her face. "Why, I'm simply having this eyesore removed, as per the city's orders," she declared, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. Emma's eyes narrowed as she whirled to face the city supervisor overseeing the demolition. "That's a lie. You have no such order. This is a city-approved mural, and you know it. The supervisor shifted uncomfortably, casting a sidelong glance at Karen. I'm afraid we do have the paperwork to remove the mural, ma'am. Mrs. Wilkins has provided all the necessary documentation. Emma's heart sank as she realized Karen had found a way to circumvent the system. She opened her mouth to protest, but the sound of approaching sirens made her pause. Within moments, a squad car pulled up, and a pair of officers stepped out, their faces grim. "Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to step away from the worksite," one of the officers said, his hand resting on his holster. Emma stared at them in disbelief. But this is my mural. You can't let them destroy it." The officer shook his head, his expression sympathetic. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have no choice. The paperwork is in order, and we have to follow proper procedure." As the mural was slowly dismantled, Emma watched in horror, tears streaming down her face. She had fought so hard to protect this work of art, this symbol of her community, and now it was all for naught. Karen stood by, her arms crossed, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. "Justice has been served," she murmured, a cruel smile tugging at the corners of her lips. But as the final piece of the mural was loaded onto a truck, a sudden flash of lightning illuminated the scene, and a powerful thunderclap shook the ground. The truck lurched forward, the driver losing control, and the mural came crashing down, sending shards of paint and concrete flying in all directions. In the chaos, Karen found herself buried under the rubble, her expensive designer clothes and perfectly coiffed hair now in shambles. The city workers and police officers scrambled to help her, but she lay there, dazed and defeated, her plan for revenge in tatters. Emma watched the scene unfold, a strange sense of satisfaction welling up inside her. As the storm continued to rage around them, she couldn't help but feel that justice had, in the end, been served.